for a review of the world papers. So we're starting with this tightening curfew restriction beginning Saturday, curfew at 6 p.m.
That's right, Will, and it's a curfew that many saw coming in France, and that has a public opinion divided, as we can see in several newspapers. Let's start by looking at conservative paper Le Figaro, which says the measure is about countering the effet apéro, the apéro effect, meaning it's basically meant to prevent people from gathering after work for a drink, something which has become a bit of a trend in recent weeks in France and which is being blamed for these infection numbers. Now, the Figaro sees the policy as a necessary evil, one that it's the only way really for French authorities to avoid going into this third lockdown, which would be even more costly than the curfew. Now, moving on to Le Parisien, another French daily, it questions whether this curfew will be effective at all. And it actually quotes a recent study that has apparently found early curfews can have positive effects on infection rates. However, the article asks whether directly going into a full lockdown may not have been a better move from the government. Speaking of this third lockdown, French daily L'Opinion argues it's still very much on the cards despite this curfew, which the curfew, according to the paper, is the last stop before lockdown. And the paper also published a drawing showing Asterix and Obelix, two popular French characters, beating up Roman soldiers as they do, which the artist compares to French authorities looking for the right formula between curfew and lockdown. And finally, French daily Libération is attempting to shed some light on the plight of students during this crisis, students who have been extremely affected and left in great distress by the pandemic. The paper looks at the consequences of this past year on their education, but also on their mental health, which has been severely affected, and says there may be a widespread mental health crisis developing at the moment among students.
Well, let's move on to the United States now, where it's being reported that Donald Trump has fallen out with one of his most fervent supporters, lawyer Rudy Giuliani.
Well, that's right. The Guardian tells us that Donald Trump was apparently offended by Giuliani's legal fees, which were around $20,000 a day, as well as by his failure to overturn the election results. And the president, who's cutting an increasingly isolated figure, has apparently instructed his aides not to pay Rudy Giuliani and also not to put through any of his calls, leaving him, as I said, more isolated than ever as he faces this second impeachment. However, according to the New York Times, the story may not be as straightforward, and reports are coming up that the falling out was potentially exaggerated between the two men. The article says that this kind of on-again, off-again tensions are a feature of this relationship that the two men have had for decades, and that Giuliani remains very likely to actually represent Trump as his lawyer in the upcoming impeachment trial, possibly because no one else will do it.
All right, well, let's stay with Donald Trump and his family being criticized for forcing an unusual expense on taxpayers.
Well, the Washington Post reports that Ivanka Trump and her husband, Jared Kushner, have been refusing to let their security detail use their 6.5 bathrooms inside their house. I'm not sure what the half is for. And this means the agents have spent months looking for reliable restrooms, and they tried various solutions. There was a porta potty. Apparently, some went to the house of former President Barack Obama, who lives nearby and was more generous with his facilities. And finally, they found a nearby basement studio to rent at the reasonable price of $3,000 a month. This has been going on for over 3 years now, and the paper estimates this has cost the taxpayers over $100,000.
For a toilet. All right, real quickly, Indonesia, our last story, where archaeologists have discovered what could be the world's oldest animal painting.
Well, that's right. It's been discovered a few years ago, but the study has now dated it and estimates it's been drawn some 45,500 years ago. We can see here the drawing represents a chubby pig or boar, apparently looking at two other pigs.
No body shaming, no chubby pigs, just a pig.
Just a pig, a very, very nice pig. Looking at other, well, we can see here is an enhanced picture. There seems to be other animals as well as human handprints in the background. And while these discoveries have apparently started to shift scientists' understanding about when, where, and how the first creative sparks of humanity flew, and research now suggests complex artistry may have originated in Europe and Asia simultaneously and independently.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lauren. We have to leave it there. Lauren Bersiger with a look at the headlines. Time now for a quick break here on Live from Paris.